Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Take 30 podcast. So, my guest today is Terry Tucker. He's originally from Colorado. He's founder of his own business called Motivational Check LLC. So, Terry, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Erykah. Thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So what's something challenging that's happened in the last few weeks, or what's something that you've learned in the last few weeks? And it can be anything, a book you read, article that you read, anything you saw on TV.
So probably the biggest challenge is last Tuesday, my uncle died. My dad was an only child. My mom had one brother, my uncle. Probably one of the greatest men I've ever met in my life. Just a very optimistic man. He was diagnosed with cancer of the bladder back in the 1970s, and he had his bladder removed. And he lived all the way. He was 95 years old when he died, and just a godly man, a caring man, a funny man. I mean, somebody that you could look at and say, I want to be like that person. And so I think the world's a little bit sadder place because he's not in it anymore. But then I always look at, well, at least we have an advocate up in heaven that's praying for us. So that's probably been the most challenging thing that's happened to me in the last few weeks.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Yeah, you were very close. It seems like you were very close to your uncle and you looked up to him as a role model.
I did. I mean, he and my dad were probably the two most important men in my life growing up. And he had 6 kids. His wife ended up having some mental issues where she needed to be medicated. He took care of the kids. He'd work nights, come home, get them ready for school, get them off to school, sleep. I mean, he went through some very difficult times, but always was positive, always was looking for the silver lining in that dark cloud and things like that. So somebody who I would say I would emulate as much as I possibly could.
Yeah, I understand. And navigating grief is one of the most difficult things. And actually, come to think of it, it will be my grandmother's 6 months. It'll be 6 months since she passed, because she actually would have been 103. Like,
wow.
She died, but literally before her 103rd birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
and
cool.
I was like, what an extraordinary life she's lived. And I mean, like, we were so close to her, and especially me. And I see pictures of her sometimes and I'm like, my goodness, like, I know that she is looking down upon us, like, but I just hope that she is proud of me and looking down on me and saying wow. And she was somebody who I really looked up to too. And when she passed, it was, oh man, that one hit. And that's my first loss as an adult, like somebody close to me. I lost my granddad at the age of 12, and we were close too. And, now as an adult, like navigating grief, like, and losing somebody close to you really hits hard.
It does. And I think, grief is really a direct relationship to the love that we had for that person. And it's good to grieve. It's good to realize that person is not here in the same form and things like that. But I mean, it sounds like you have a faith in something bigger than us, and as I do too. And so I kind of look at it like, well, there'll be a time where hopefully we'll be together again at some point. And what I learned from what you needed to teach me. And 95 years old for my uncle, and almost 103 for your grandmother. I mean, that's a heck of a life. That's a lot of things being seen. And I think as long as you leave this world loved, somebody loves you in this world, you've made a difference in the life of somebody else.
Yeah. And that's kind of like how I've had to navigate it. When knowing that, like, okay, when that person is no longer here, we will eventually meet someday. Yeah. So just tell us just a little bit about yourself, where you grew up and stuff like that.
Sure. So I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I'm the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall. And I went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on a basketball scholarship. I have another brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame's baseball team. Another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". We used to joke that, growing up, if you sat behind our family in church, not a prayer's chance you were going to see anything that was going on, at the front of the church because of our height. But our 5'8" mother was really the boss. It really didn't matter how big, tall, strong we were. Whatever mom said, that's the way it went. So as I mentioned, I went to college, the first person in my family to graduate from college. And after graduation, and Erykah, I'm really going to date myself now, but this is long before the internet was available to help people find employment. So my first job out of college was in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. After Wendy's, I actually went to work for the hospital that cared for my father and my grandmother. I thought they did such a great job that I wanted to be part of that organization. And then at 37, made a major pivot in my life, became a police officer. Part of what I did during my law enforcement career was I was a SWAT hostage negotiator. After that, started a school security consulting business, coached girls high school basketball. But for the last 13 years now, I've been battling a rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma.
Oh, wow. Wow. And thank you for sharing that. Also, how has your experience with cancer changed your perspective on life?
Yeah, so 2012, as I mentioned, I was diagnosed with this rare form of melanoma and was told that I would be dead in 2 years. And I thought, well, you gave me a death sentence. Maybe I can try to turn that death sentence into a life sentence. And that's really what I've been trying to do. When I die, where I die, how I die, way above my pay grade. Don't spend a lot of time worrying about the dying. Although I think death is something we should all sort of have in our peripheral vision. It shouldn't be something we focus on or something that brings us down. But knowing that we're going to die someday, I think focuses us, at least it does for me, focuses us on what's important in life, on the living portion of it, of not, getting wealth and power and influence, but of making connections, of having relationships with other human beings. There's a professor at the University of Chicago who does this experiment with his students. And the idea is you go out, you get on a bus, and in 3 questions, you go deep with somebody. So you sit down next to somebody and, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you? Question 1. And I'm just making this up. Question 2, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, question 3, have you always wanted to be a doctor? It doesn't matter what they answer. They could say, no, I grew up on a farm and I wanted to be a veterinarian. Or, yeah, my mom was a doctor and she died of breast cancer at 40. So I'm honoring her memory by following in her footsteps. Whatever they tell you, now they're telling you their why in life, why they do what they do. And we don't go deep with people today. I mean, we stay on the circuit with social media. Everything's great. Everything's fun. Everything's wonderful. And you and I had this discussion before we jumped on. Everything's not wonderful all the time, but going deep, finding somebody's why is something that I spend a lot of time doing because I love people.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, really getting into the root cause and just like having, just that connection with somebody is so important because I mean, social media today, like you're right, we don't ask, those deep questions like, what do you like to do? Or, everybody's always on their phones. And I mean, like, I'm guilty of it too. Like sometimes I gotta detach myself and like put little time limits and say, okay, scrolling on your phone is okay, but you can get so too attached to it. And I think, we have to realize that sometimes it's okay to just put the phone down and just have a conversation with somebody. And that's something that, especially now, I'm trying to do. And I just want to be present and not just be so focused on the phone itself. And I think just sitting down and just having like a meaningful conversation and finding out their why is so important in life. And we do as a society need to do better with that. And in a way, I do blame social media. I'm not saying that social media is like a bad thing, but it can get very addictive.
It can. And we don't know how to talk to each other, like you said, and there was an experiment done at the University of Virginia a few years ago.
Mhm.
It was a very simple experiment, but the outcome of the experiment said a lot about where we are as a society. The experiment was, we're going to put you in a room with nothing, no phone, no earbuds, no pen, nothing. The only thing in the room is a table and a chair. And we're going to ask you to stay in this room for 15 to 20 minutes. So not like for days, but just for a short period of time. Mm-hmm. The only other thing in the room was a buzzer. And if you pressed the buzzer, you received an electric shock. 68% of the men and 25% of the women pressed the buzzer, including one guy who pressed the buzzer on average every 5 seconds for that 20-minute period. And the conclusion of the experiment was, we're not comfortable with our own thoughts. We have to take our direction from that phone, from what the phone is telling us. Do they like what I'm wearing today? Do they like my hair? Do they like what we're doing? Whatever. And what that taught me is exactly what you said. We should unplug at least for 10 or 15 minutes every day. Just take your phone, put it in a drawer, and go sit somewhere and be comfortable with your own thoughts. Because what that experiment told us was, we're not comfortable with the thoughts in our own minds.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. And it's just sitting there, with it just being you, and it's like you and your mind, like nothing in front of you. We're just not comfortable with our own thoughts, because I feel like too, we've like we were talking about, we're so attached to our phones. We're so attached to things. And honestly, we do have to unplug and just say for a minute, like, okay, let it just be me and myself only. Like, let me meditate, let me do something that makes me feel good. Instead of getting on my phone and doom scrolling, right?
Right.
And I think, as humans, because now we do everything on the computer, especially Gen Z, we have easy access to a lot of different things. And so sometimes we just have to unplug a little bit and just focus on, it just being nothing around us, no phone, no laptop, and just sit there with our thoughts for a minute. So yeah, I agree. We're just so super attached to our phones, and sometimes we just have to take a step back a little bit. But let's move on to your business, and that's called Motivational Check LLC. Tell us just a little bit about your business and stuff like that.
Sure. I mean, my business is pretty simple. Motivational Check LLC is sort of the parent company, the umbrella that I use for my writing my books and for my speaking. And Motivational Check was a term that was given to us in the police academy. I mean, we did some really crazy things in terms of our defensive tactics and our physical fitness. And some of these things were hard. And motivational check was a phrase that our defensive tactics instructor gave us, that if we were just having one of those days where, man, it's just a tough day, I don't think I can get through this, you could yell out motivational check. And the rest of the class would respond with 84. We were the 84th recruit class in the Cincinnati, Ohio Police Department's police academy, just to let the person know you're not alone. We're in this with you. We're all hurting, but we're going to get through this together. So when I was looking for a title, a name for my company, motivational check just kept coming up over and over in my own mind. And it doesn't mean a lot to anybody else, but to me, it means a great deal. It means that I'm not alone, that I'll get through whatever difficulties I have because there are other people around me that will help me do that.
Mm. Ooh, that's nice. Um, yeah, I like that. What was the most significant lesson you learned from your time as a Division I basketball player, and how has that impact other areas of your life?
Sure, I think sports and team sports, more importantly, you learn a lot of valuable lessons in life. And I can, certainly what I learned in college, but I think it goes back to, when I was 7 or 8 years old and I started to be part of a team. I started to play team sports. You learn how to be a good teammate. You learn how to be coachable. You learn how to take losing. You learn how to take disappointment. And all of those are life lessons that if you learn those lessons as you grow up and as you're in high school and college and things like that, those lessons apply to your life. They apply to your life as a business. They apply to your life as a family person, as a person of faith, as a person in your community, in government, whatever that ends up being. And so I think it's real important for us to understand that life is the biggest team game that we all play. I mean, we're not in this together. If the COVID pandemic taught us anything, it's how much we need each other.
Yeah.
During COVID, when we were all restricted and couldn't go out and couldn't do anything, alcoholism rates went up, drug abuse rates went up, domestic violence rates went up. We're better together than we are by ourselves. And I think you learn that when you're part of a team. And as you grow up, regardless whether you play sports or not, we're all going to be part of some team, whether it's our family, whether it's the work that we do, whatever it ends up being. So those were invaluable lessons that I learned throughout my basketball playing career from the time I started at 8 all the way up till I graduated from college.
Yeah, I agree. I think if one thing this COVID pandemic has taught me is that we are better together as a team, as a community, as a society. But also I feel like COVID just allowed us to work, like to just slow down and work on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you're right. The only downfall that, happened during COVID is drug addiction went up, domestic violence went up, a lot of things went up. And but also it was a time where, as a fast moving society, as we are today, it allowed us to just slow down, and it allowed us to be present with, especially the people that we love. Yeah. And, I do think COVID, the pandemic in a way, because it allowed us to, just slow down, because we're just such a go society all the time. And we realize that we just don't have time for anything else.
You're right. And it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, about how we're so tied to that device. Now, like you say, it gave us time to be with our families, together and things like that. And if you had a great family, which I do, it was great. But if you didn't like your family, it was torture.
It was torture. Yeah. It was like, get me out of here. Yeah, I agree. So like COVID kind of had its perks, but it also had its downfalls too.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So let's see here. You're also an author of Sustainable Excellence: 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, and a featured author in Perspectives on Cancer Stories of Healing, Hope, and Resilience. So just go ahead and tell us just a little bit about your books.
Sure. So I never expected to write a book, never wanted to write a book, to be honest with you. There's kind of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So God has never talked to me and said, hey, Terry, you should write a book. But I think what God has done, and this has happened several times in my life, where he puts enough people in my path that start making the same suggestion over and over. You should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And I think I'm old enough and a little bit more mature now that when that happens, I need to pay attention to it. So Sustainable Excellence was really a book born out of two conversations I had. I mentioned that I was a girls' high school basketball coach when we lived in Texas. And I had one of my players move to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And
Yeah.
Erykah, she got real quiet for a while. And then she
Ooh.
looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, and there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man in college who reached out to me on social media, and he asked me what I thought were the most important things that he should learn, not to just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And Erykah, I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give him sort of the cliches that we all know. So I spent some time taking some notes and eventually kind of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle. Or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So unfortunately, during my cancer journey, I had my leg amputated in 2020 in the middle of the COVID pandemic. And during that 4 to 5 month period where I was healing from that amputation, I literally sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the 10 principles. And that's how Sustainable Excellence came to be.
Wow. So where can we find your book? Is it on Amazon and on your website, or?
Yes, it's on Amazon. It's on my website. It's on barnesandnoble.com, Apple iBook, wherever you get your book online, you can find Sustainable Excellence.
Awesome. So you hear that, you guys? Definitely make sure to get Terry's book. And I will be getting a copy myself. I can't wait to read it. So let's see. What skills from your business career did you find most useful in other areas of your life?
I think if people don't remember anything I've said so far, remember this. I think this is incredibly important. And this took me a long time to learn this.
Mm-hmm.
It's more important who you work with and who you work for than it is the work that you do. Find people that care about you. Find people that are willing to invest in you. Find people that want to see you succeed, and hitch your wagon to those people and climb your mountains together. I mean, we've all probably heard that we're the product of the 5 people we hang around with the most. So hang around with better people, smarter people, more affluent people, people that are more curious, that want to learn, as opposed to people who, their life is all about drama and everything's negative and nothing is positive. If you hang around people that are negative, you'll end up being negative. If you hang around people that are positive and are going places, you'll end up going with them. So hang around with good people that care about you and want to see you succeed.
Yeah, I think that is a great lesson to learn, is like, you got to surround yourself with people who cheer you on, people who genuinely are happy for you, because there are people who pretend to be happy for you and they're not actually happy for you. And then there's those people that truly love what you're doing and support and are really supportive of what you're doing. And it's all about finding those people. And they're, they are out there. I mean, I will say they're hard to find, but they're out there. And you have to surround yourself with positive energy, because if that negative energy can make you a negative person. And so you always have to find people that uplift you, find people that support you genuinely, and find like-minded people that's doing the same things as you, and have kind of a similar vision to you.
Absolutely. And I would also challenge you to have at least one or two people in that group that will challenge you. That'll be like, hey, Terry, no, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think you should do that. That's not going to be a positive. People that love you enough to tell you the truth, even if that truth might end the relationship. I mean, what do we do with people when they don't agree with us? It's like, I get that person out of my life. I don't want to have anything to do with it. No, we need those people in our life that love us enough, that are willing to tell us the truth when we're messing up, when we're making mistakes in life. Because so many people are like, whatever, just go along with the flow. Don't go along with the flow. Be honest enough with me, care enough about me to tell me when I'm making a mistake.
Yeah, that too is important. And you do have to have those people that will be honest with you and will tell you, hey, I don't like that you're doing this, or, whatever. And also it can come from a place of, love.
Yes.
Not a place of necessarily hate. So, we really do need some of those people that do challenge us too. But also just an important reminder, surround yourself, especially for those listening, surround yourself with people who bring positive energy to you, positive light to you. But also find people that will challenge you too. But all right, so one last question for you. So I want to know, self-care looks very different for everyone, right? I want to know how you define self-care, and what self-care activities do you incorporate in your everyday life?
That's a great question. I think self-care is, what can I do to optimize my life, my physical life, my spiritual life, my emotional life, my mental life? What am I doing in my life? I do all kinds of things. From what I eat, one of the diagnostic tools my doctor used to use for my cancer, to look at my cancer progression, was a thing called a PET scan. Don't ask me what PET stands for. It's some really long name that I'm not smart enough to pronounce. But it basically involves injecting you with radioactive sugar, with the idea being that cancer cells have a higher metabolism, and they will pick up that sugar at a higher rate than the rest of your cells. And that's what glows on a scan. Well, nobody ever told me that I should not eat sugar. But it didn't take, I think, a rocket scientist to say, well, wait a minute, if cancer likes sugar so much, maybe I should stop eating as much sugar as I do. So it's educating yourself on what's good for you based on the circumstances that you have in life. So from what I eat to, I do a breathing technique every afternoon. I pray every afternoon for so many people I've met along my cancer journey. I take cold showers. Anything I can do during the day to challenge myself, anything I can do that makes me nervous, that makes me uncomfortable, that scares me, that's potentially embarrassing. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we unexpectedly get let go from our job, we find out we have a chronic or a terminal illness, you will be so much more resilient to handle those things if you challenge yourself every day.
I agree. And I think this is where we can end it right here. Thank you so much again for coming on the show. Can you let all of my guests know where they can find you on social media and on your website?
Sure. So I have a blog/website called motivationalcheck.com. You can leave me a message there. You can get access to the rest of my social media links there. I love talking to people. So, if you want to reach out, give me a shout. I'll absolutely write you back, and we can have a conversation. So motivationalcheck.com.
Amazing. All right, you guys. So that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for coming, Terry, for coming on the show. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this episode, make sure to leave me a message on Instagram, leave me a DM, the Take 30 podcast. And also, if you are someone who wants to share your story, definitely, you can slide into my DMs and I will be there to listen, or you can send me an email, the Take 30 podcast at gmail.com. And I will list all of my social media down in the description below. And I'll also list Terry's social media and website in the description below as well. But that is going to be it for this week's episode. So I want you guys to go out into the world, spread love, whatever that looks like. Also be kind to everybody that you meet, and also make sure to take time for you and your mental health. Because you matter. You are amazing in everything that you do. And, go out there and spread love, spread kindness, whatever that looks like, and go out to the world and also have fun. All right, you guys. So that is it for this week's episode. Again, you can give the show 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, and leave me a review. And I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys.